Michael O'Grady e i creativi.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is the next part of episode 8 of Michael O'Grady and the Creatives. If you guys are just joining us now, my very awesomely talented guest today, his name is Matt Coatsworth, and he is a motion pictures agent for the company U.T.A. He works and represents with cinematographers, producers, costume designers, the whole 9 yards of everything. He works with everybody. He knows everybody. And he's here to promote his new campaign. And he sticks firmly by this. And he believes this with all his heart that Brad Pitt should be mayor.
Brad Pitt should be mayor.
Mayor of
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Just New Orleans.
So I used to live in New Orleans.
Right.
And this is a whole thing while I was living there.
If you're not, if you're just listening, he's wearing a Brad Pitt for mayor T-shirt.
It says Brad Pitt for mayor.
Yeah.
So when I was living in,
it's really funny.
I lived in New Orleans, 2012, 2013. 2011, 2012, and you have to think like that was 5 and 6 years after Katrina.
Okay.
And what happened was like right after the Katrina hurricane had the hurricane hit, but the big problem that New Orleans faced was that like the hurricane kind of landed itself over Lake Pontchartrain, which is just north of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And when the levees broke because they weren't working, and they weren't working because there were a series of very corrupt city officials that were like siphoning city money to their own. And they were like buying fancy cars and shit, and like it was horrible. It was like the epitome of like everything that could go wrong about a government system. If all the pumps were working to pump water out of the city, there wouldn't have been the crisis that happened. Like
right.
that like the water levels and the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word. But anyway, so there's a what happened was after so Brad Pitt shot a bunch of movies in New Orleans. Louisiana has a big tax break or had a big. Now it's back. Actually, it's quite competitive. It's a whole other conversation. But for that period, there was like they call it an uncapped tax credit. So basically, if you want to shoot a movie, you pick a state that has a tax incentive, meaning like if you go and spend $10 million in the state of Louisiana, you get 30% back as what they call a transferable rebate. Right. So what that basically means is you take that. It's essentially it works like a credit. Like you can take that tax credit and like sell it to it gets kind of complicated quickly, but you can sell that tax credit to another company, or you can get the money back from the state government, and that goes against your production budget. So like if your budget is $10 million, you get 30% of that in terms of a tax rebate from the state of Louisiana, and they'll give you back essentially $3 million, but you don't get $3 million in cash back. You get it in terms of a transferable tax credit. Mm-hmm. So then you work with a broker that takes that tax credit and sells it to other companies that are also trying to get tax credits, but that don't work in the film. And that's where it gets kind of complicated.
Okay. Yeah,
but the easiest way to explain it is basically like the government gives you a check for like, 30% of the money that you've spent in their state.
Right.
And that's what attracts movies to come to Louisiana. That like
right,
Georgia's a good example. Like the state of Georgia
Walking Dead
has a very Walking Dead, all the Marvel movies, like Pinewood has huge studios set up there, and like Winter Soldier was shooting there until COVID shut everything down, the series. And when I was living in New Orleans in 2012, they had what they called an uncapped tax credit, meaning like it didn't matter how many movies came in and spent money, like the government would just keep throwing money at the film program.
Right.
And what was happening was like there were roads that weren't being maintained, and there were like museums that were going out of business, but the government spending all this money on tax rebates, and there was some funny business going on with some producers that were pulling some shit and like making their own situation a lot better, essentially defrauding the tax credit system.
Jeez.
So when one of these big things got uncovered, they pulled the credit, and the Louisiana government was like, no, there's no more tax credit. That's it. So like Disney pulled, I think it was like Pirates of the Caribbean were supposed to go to Louisiana, but then the government, the state government of Louisiana, they were like, we might not want to do the credit for much longer because like we have issues in our state and we're spending so much money to keep film production here, but we're not seeing like, because the idea is that like the state spends money to bring films into the state, and then while the films spend money, they support the local economy by hiring people, by buying stuff from local, vendors, and meaning like stores and artist shops and construction shops and like just everything, like equipment rental companies, like all that shit, like that all goes into the tax rebate. But what was happening was producers were, some very specific, very shifty producers were like buying cars in Louisiana, buying like, $80,000 Lexuses and running it in through the production budget, and then like driving them back to Los Angeles and like having so people were taking advantage of the system basically.
Right. Yeah.
So while I was living in New Orleans, there were a whole group of people that were very against the corrupt system that were they were in part to blame for what had happened for Katrina. And what happened was like Brad Pitt, who had shot a series of movies, one of them being Benjamin Button, another one being 12 Years a Slave, another, like a lot of these films had shot Django, which wasn't Brad Pitt actually, so that's a bad example. But like a lot of these movies that had shot in Louisiana, like Brad Pitt had been down there so much that like he bought property and he got really involved in the culture, because it's a very easy culture to get sucked up at. Like I almost moved there. I almost stayed there. Like when the movie was done, if I didn't have, I stayed. This was
on Ender's Game.
This was on Ender's Game. Yeah. Like I stayed on the film and came back to LA and worked for another year in post, which typically doesn't happen. Like you usually go from one production job to another, but I had the opportunity to stay on as the post coordinator. So I just, I got involved with the editor and was doing.
That's how you got here to LA?
That is literally how I got here to LA.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have met.
It's insane, yeah. But like that whole thing.
Thank you, Ender's Game.
And I have so much to thank. I mean, my best friends still to this date. I mean, there's like my best friends in Los Angeles. There's like you, and then there's like Jason, who was the art department coordinator. There's Mandy, who's one of the producers. Linda, who's one of the producers. Micah, who's the art department coordinator, as well, is like still a best friend. Cherie, like all those people, that whole group of people. Thane, who was our production supervisor, we're all still best friends to this day.
Right. Wow.
And I've worked on in my day, like before I started at the company, I had probably 15 movies, and like I don't have a group of friends like that.
Right.
Other than Ender's Game. Like Ender's Game brought an amazing group of like very talented creative people together, and everyone has gone on to have success in their own area. Like people that stayed. My buddy Jason, who was we called it digital asset manager, but really he was like an elevated art department coordinator, but he knew all the digital stuff of the art department. Again, this is like the meeting of like an analog world versus a digital world, and he knew all of the systems of like how to manage data and like all that. I don't know, it's like geeky stuff that he knows, and I have no fucking idea what it's all about. But he's gone on to become the head of post for Legendary, and he's Jason,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jason Beal, who you've met, Jason, like
thousands of times we've hung out.
Yeah, so Jason is the head of post for Legendary. Actually, that'd be a guy you should have him.
Definitely have Jason on the show.
Get him on here. Yeah, and he's an LA guy. He's from Venice Beach.
Right. We went and partied with them during the day one time at their place.
Oh, we certainly did.
Down at Venice, and there was that burger shack that we walked over to.
Mahu, wahu, wahi,
mahi. Those burgers were so good.
They put the sausages on the burgers, and then
it was so good.
See, like those moments.
Can we get one of those now?
Like I stopped eating meat about a year ago.
You haven't eaten meat in a year?
Yeah, I've been I eat chicken and fish.
That's meat.
Well, I don't eat. Sorry, let me rephrase.
Red meat?
I don't eat red meat. I stopped eating red meat about a year ago, and when I was going through my the plasma thing, I craved a cheeseburger like you wouldn't
really. You haven't had a cheeseburger in a year?
No, I haven't, and it's literally been a year because it was last summer at my cabin.
So, because of everything that Brad Pitt got involved with.
Yeah,
they made a shirt.
So anyway, going back to that, I know, good job, because it's impossible what you're trying to do. Keep me on point. So what happened was, because Brad Pitt, after Katrina happened, started building houses for people, and he started building these houses that were up on stilts. So he took all of his big fancy movie money and actually started buying. They're like, okay, you're a family, you're fucked. You guys need a house? Buying you a house. and he bought them a house, and he built them a house, and he did that for like 200 families.
Wow.
Like Brad Pitt built infrastructure in New Orleans, in the 9th Ward and the 12th Ward, and like these areas that only lost their, I guess, social integrity because of corrupt politicians. So this group of people started an organization called Brad Pitt for Mayor, and there was an event while I was there that I went to, and Brad Pitt went and did a talk, and it was a whole Brad Pitt for Mayor thing, and you could buy a shirt for like, I think it was $25,
Yeah.
and the $25 for the shirt actually went to Katrina victims to pay for their houses. So this shirt actually like invested it. This was 2000. Yeah, I've had the. I mean, what is it? 2020 now. So I've had the shirt for 8 years.
Yeah,
and which is a miracle. Like most T-shirts last me like 2-3 years because I'm
Right.
I'm a very aggressive clothes wearer.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why I just like rip through shit. Like because jeans I get it because I play drums and like they just shit just rips.
No, but that I've always seen that shirt.
Feeling is like every couple months. It's just you lean down and pick something up and it's like, oh, well, there it goes.
Yeah. I go through clothes through accidental. I lose them on tour on accident, where I think I clear out a shelf from the.
That happens so much when I was.
You know what I mean with the hook. Oh, not anymore. No, but I do want to ask you about.
I know it's like a year until that's going to happen. Right. It's vaccine driven. Like there's going to be no live events until there's a vaccine. What is going on with what you know of? Sure. Yeah. So film production.
What do you know of like for the entertainment business? Because we're all in this, like you said before, this very huge uncertainty. Nobody is getting backed the way they should be normally when it comes to insurance and the bonds. Nobody knows which way. Because and you said, I think you said this before the show started, that this is where again you'll clarify this of like, hey, this is what it's looking like now, but it can change in a week, or it's changed on a daily basis of what it looks like for the entertainment business for us here in Los Angeles and how it's affecting your work and everybody around you.
So, I mean, one thing to think about is like when the shutdown happened, which was Friday, March 13th, that was the day that everybody got sent home. And that was like the day that our industry changed forever.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th is the day that, life changed forever. When you were a film in production up until that point, when you bought production insurance, which you have to get to bond your film, and again, I was explaining this to you before, like a bond is sort of like a backup insurance. It's like a backstop insurance policy that like, so you have your insurance policy. So if you have like an actor that gets sick, the insurance company will cover like a couple of days of shutting down. But a bond company, what they do is they insure the completion of the film. They literally call it a completion bond. And you have this long, complicated, I've been on all kinds of these phone calls. Like you have a long, complicated phone call with what you call your bond company representative, and you walk them through every day of your schedule. You walk them through how you're going to keep your actors safe. You walk them through what your plan is for weather. So like if on day 13 it fucking starts raining, like what do? Do you shut down for the day? No, we move inside and we have what they call weather cover. And weather cover is you have a backup plan. So you have to have an AD that knows what they're doing, an assistant director that's a Directors Guild position that works sort of hand in hand. The way my dad's a film producer, and that's kind of obviously how I got into the business. And what he's always said is like, you've got the dream, I've got the scheme. And that's always been my dad's line. And like he's got all these great like one-liners. Like, you should get my dad in here. That'd be
that would be so rad to talk to your dad. That would be awesome.
Oh, he's the best.
Tell him I said hi, by the way.
I will. Yeah. He's doing great. He's and he's he's going through it all right now too. He's prepping a huge series for Apple called Masters of the Air. Mm-hmm. And it's basically the Band of Brothers, but like for the sky. So it's all of like the aerial battles. So you start out in I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, so I should probably just stop it right there.
Stop it right there. Get back. You can get back to the
airplanes. Yeah, just airplanes. World War II airplanes.
Yeah.
That's it. And so my dad's doing the series right now, and so typically what you would do is you would go out and you would buy what they call production insurance. So when everything got shut down on March 13th, it didn't get shut down because of COVID. It got shut down because of civil authority. So civil authority is a legal term that operates underneath the like it's a standard insurance term, and it means that the local government is telling you that you're not allowed to shoot. It's not, and the virus is the reason that the government's saying you're not allowed to shoot, because they're saying you can't have more than 10 people gathering together. Therefore, film production can't happen because there's too many people clustered together. Right. So when all those shutdowns happened, the insurance claim isn't because of COVID. The insurance claim is because of civil authority shutdown, what they call force majeure. Force majeure is like a legal term that means act of God.
Okay. Right.
But you're not, again, like your insurance claim isn't COVID happened, therefore it's an insurance claim. The insurance claim is the civil authority said we're not allowed to shoot anymore. It's a civil authority claim. So you never actually had COVID insurance. So even and right up until March 13th, you could actually buy COVID insurance because nobody knew how bad it was going to get. So there's a handful of people that actually have COVID policies, but now they're null and void because the SAG, who's the Actors Guild, they've put out like a pretty specific message that's like all contracts up until COVID are now null and void, and like each company, each production has to come in and basically like renegotiate and like tell that we'll table that for a second. We'll table the SAG conversation for a second, but just to like clarify how this whole, because it was a little confusing for me at first too.
Right.
But you didn't shut the production down because of COVID, but the insurance claim was because of civil authority,
Which is the act of God.
which is force majeure, which is the act of God.
Right. Now,
So-
why is that though? Why do they have to be almost separated in the regards to say that?
Because
it's not because of
insurance claims are an incredibly specific legal process.
Right.
And the way that the legal process broke down in this case, it fell under a civil authority claim, meaning that the reason that you're going for an insurance claim is because you're not allowed to have more than 10 people together because the government's telling you can't have more than 10
Right.
people together. Whatever the reasoning for that can't have more than 10 people together,
Right.
that's ultimately irrelevant for the sake of the claim.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Even though we all know it's
COVID.
because of COVID.
But they can't put that down as the official claim.
But though, I mean, they can, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the
it's
claim.
apples
The claim is because of civil authority shutdown.
Would it be one of those things where if anything else happened, whether it was called COVID-19 or it was this other thing that happened, it would still be the same thing where they go...
because there's no other event that has affected every single film in production, every single series. It affected everything. It affected every single film in production, every
and
series
everything
in
all
production,
over the world.
every commercial in production globally was shut down, except for like one random movie kept shooting in Australia, and I think there was like one or two other things that kept going.
So because hold on, let me just because I am a little confused. The government says, hey, you can't have more than 10 people in a room, 6 feet apart, wear the masks.
The masks weren't even.
Oh, not even at this point.
They weren't even a thing at that.
But what are you saying is that nobody had this kind of insurance?
No, everybody had this kind of insurance.
They did.
Everybody.
I'm sorry. I wish I was smarter.
No, it's okay. It's fucking complicated.
I was gonna say,
it's
I'm
okay. It's good. So everybody bought an insurance. To bond your project or to insure your project, you buy civil authority insurance. So like you're covered.
That's the bond. No,
two separate things.
Damn
like
it.
That's the insurance.
I thought I had it.
The bond, like for example, a TV series doesn't need a bond because ultimately the network is going to cover whatever costs happen. A studio film doesn't necessarily need a bond because the studio will cover the overhead over anything that happens.
Because they're at that studio.
Whereas like a smaller studio movie, something that is what we call a negative pickup, meaning it's a film that is made independently but then bought by a studio from the producers, like that would need a bond. Like any independent movie that's like above $2 or $3 million, and then it kind of cuts off at like 10 or 15 million, and that's usually when a studio will come in and like partner up, because like to finance an independent movie at like north of $15 million right now, like I don't know who's doing that. Like that's a really tough model.
Nobody's doing it.
Well, the magic model, like pre-COVID, let's say, sort of like fast forward or rewind a year. Like if this was 2018 March, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were an an independent film producer and you were trying to put a film together, your sweet spot would be $7 million budget.
Okay.
Because that buys you 2 actors that have name recognition. So like you can afford, for example, like a James McAvoy and like a Alicia Vikander or something like that. You can, and again, you're not paying like insane amounts of money for them. You can get 2 movie stars for a couple of weeks to come and do your film, and you can still afford a decent amount of production value to put money into the film. But that $7 million price point still allows you to play the international pre-sales game, like understanding an actor's value in all the different territories. Like you might not be able to pre-sell to all the territories, meaning like pre-selling is like, okay, I have a movie, it's this director, it's these two actors, this is how these people have performed in these territories over the last like 5 movies that have been released in that territory. Therefore, we can create a mathematical equation and we can establish their value in that territory. And then you can do one of two things. And again, this is like call it pre-2010 model. Like you would go and pre-sell the movie in that territory, meaning like that $1.5 million that you've pre-sold goes directly into your production budget. Or your other option is to take out a bank loan against the value of that actor in that territory, but you only get about 80% of the value of the actor in that territory if you're doing the bank loan model, which is what more people are doing now. So you establish the value of that actor in that territory, and then you take out a loan against that actor's value in that territory, but you only get 80% of it. So if you pre-sell the movie, you get 100% of it. If you're doing the loan against the actor's value, you get about 80%. Like between 60 and 80%, depending on the producer's track record, depending on like the director's track record, and that gets fucking complicated. Again, like all of this is like this whole like the international
there's a lot to it.
The independent film, the whole thing is incredibly complicated. And like I've been doing it now 6 years at U.T.A. and like I didn't really have a ton of like experience in indie films before. Like I'd worked on set. I understood like how to build a production plan, how to work on set, how to make like one movie happen. I was an AD in Toronto, which is assistant director, so I understood how to schedule a movie, meaning like you take a script and you break down scene by scene. Okay, this is the page length. This is how much dialogue there is. This is like the location. This is like the amount of background that we need. This is like, and each scene kind of has their own section of the schedule. So what you do is if you've got a movie that takes place in 5 different locations and you're kind of cutting back and forth between those locations, what you would do as an AD or as a UPM or a line producer is you clump together all the locations and you clump together all the actors and you so the actor days and the location days, and you create a schedule based out of sort of what is going to create the most value out of like those actors working on those days and those locations working on those days. So you only have to get one location for like 8 days, but that plays all throughout the movie. So you're going to cut it later. So you'll have one location and it's like, okay, great. Here's the front of the building in 1922. And then the end of the movie, here's the front of the building in 1945. And like, we're going to do like two separate things, but you're going to own that location for like 2 weeks and do all your work there. And then move the whole company to like another location, do everything. So all of that to say, COVID fucked everything up. And typically film sets are arguably up until COVID happened, film sets are arguably a very challenging place to try to contain germ transfer, because you had something as simple as like the craft service table, which is like where all the food is. Crafty. But you have bowls of chips where you have 15 people putting their hands in it.
One utensil, everybody's
And then for the lunch line, you have 100 people walking through the same catering line, everybody using the same tongs and the same. So you have all these opportunities, and then you have physical paperwork on a film set. Like the IATSE, which is the union that represents cinematographers and production designers and all that, like they're all about like the physical time card, meaning you write down the hours that you work in the day, and that goes in. And it's the same with for if you're a PA working on a day up literally up until the head of the camera department,
right.
You're writing physically on a piece of paper, and all of those paper transfers, those are germ transfer opportunities.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's not just that like we have 20 people all standing together and huddling around a camera making notes and all that. It's that like every facet of my industry which is film production is horrible for germ transfer. And we literally have to reinvent our entire industry. So it means also like, how do you account for like somebody walking in off the street that is on the show,
right?
And they're supposed to show up to work for that day, but like they haven't been tested. You don't know what
Right.
they're doing. So that means that like you either have to have a doctor on, and so what one of the models they're using in Spain right now, because I was on with there's a director named J.A. Bayona, and he directed like one of Monster Calls, and he was directing the Lord of the Rings series before everything went down, and his producer has become someone I've just been doing some work with recently. She's really smart. What's her name? And she so what she told me is that their plan, you take a hotel, you rent out the entire hotel, or at least a wing of the hotel that you can totally separate, and you put your entire cast and crew into that hotel, and you create an accountability chain from the hotel to the stage. So that means all the cast and crew get in the same vans. Everybody gets tested.
Right.
You go into your hotel, and then you quarantine, which, like, this is unheard of before. Like, typically, you just get in a car, you drive yourself to work, you show up, and you go home, you're with your family in the evening, you're with whatever. But now you have to create a situation where there's no outside germs, basically, that can get into to the film set. So you have a hotel that's entirely dedicated to the crew and cast of the film. You have drivers that are just going to bring people to the stage and back, and then once you're on the stage, everybody wears a mask. I mean, right now there's no answer to how do we have 5 actors with an entire room full of background people on set working together in a way that makes it safe for COVID. So now we have to look at what productions we're going to, what projects we're going to put into production from like a COVID outward viewpoint almost. So we're looking for films that have like very little background, minimal cast, sort of in one of the films. I can't say too much about this because I know I'm not allowed to say it, but like it's literally 2 astronauts in a thing floating around Earth, and it's just 2 of them talking.
Like, we can do that,
and that's two people talking.
Right.
Like, that's easy.
Yeah.
That's on stage. But then it's not easy because the Actors Guild, which is SAG, they haven't released any guidelines yet. So there's no clear,
and nobody has like Corona or COVID insurance to protect.
There is no COVID insurance
to protect anybody.
You cannot buy
the company, the actors, the doctors.
You currently cannot buy as of today, which is May
27th. This will air in like a week.
As of May 27th, 2020, you cannot buy COVID insurance, which means that no,
because nobody knows. Yeah.
So my personal opinion.
Wait, and also let me ask you this question. Like, let's say this hypothetical, easy situation. Let's say I'm working on your movie. I'm a PA, or I'm the actor, whatever the fuck, right? And
I would hire you.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Oh man, wait, which position?
Lead. What do you want to be?
Lead bathroom attendant.
Co-lead bathroom attendant.
Co-lead?
Yeah, co-lead bathroom attendant. Yeah, co-lead
Give me
bathroom
the lead.
attendant. I don't know.
You out of your mind? Jesus. All right, whatever. I'll take it. What kind of chump do you think I'll take it. So I'm working on your show, I'm working on your movie. You're the company that put together the movie. And I get COVID-19, and I'm terminally ill, and it's through the roof, and it's super bad. It's like, I'm going to die. Is that why they're not? Because they...
Well, also, you have to ask the question, how do you know that you had it? Is the testing something that the production is responsible for? Or are you, as an individual, responsible for getting your own test and then reporting it to the production, like, I tested positive, I tested negative?
Wouldn't the production be responsible for all that?
So, for example, in Sweden, the government covers the testing. In South Korea, the government covers the testing.
But nobody here is doing that?
Right now, it depends. Again, this is part of the whole conversation. So, there's a fixed, what they call COVID compliance, meaning, like, masks, individual meals for people. But you gotta pay people to eat during the day. So there's got to be some like per diem that they're paying people for craft service. The unions have to let up on physical paperwork. I mean, I just don't see how handing pieces of paper to each other in 2020 is something we have to do. Like, I don't understand how that can't be done over email. Like, or some kind of digital.
But it takes forever to get an old system out of
it is unbelievable
to get a new to implement a new thing.
But again, they all have a fair point because it took them generations of problems happening to get to a point where they've protected this way of life and this way of working that is meant to ensure that multiple people have jobs. Like the camera union, the way it's set up now, like a camera team has to be a minimum of a certain number of people.
Oh, really? Oh,
Whereas like in Europe and in Asia, there's no minimum staffing requirements. But
they can have 2, 3 if they want.
But the way the IA is set up, 600 IA 600 is the camera union, and the way that they're set up is like one person does this job, one person does that job, and it's very like it's actually set up in a really like an amazing way, in a way that like everybody has their own job.
So much.
Nobody's running around stepping on each other's toes. It's arguably the most efficient way of getting shit done, but it makes a bigger crew. So, like, if you want to start condensing the crew and giving people multiple jobs, you start stepping on the toes of what the unions have been trying to protect for years. So it actually becomes this whole debate.
I would have never even thought about this.
Yeah.
That's a whole new avenue that you just opened up that I'm like, oh my God, if they have this I-600...
IA 600 is the
This is like their law,
and
their
that's
rule.
just one of the
and that's just one
you
little.
have to think makeup has their own union, hair has their own union.
So this is just one aspect of a union that's fucked up because of the COVID-19 and the rules that we have to follow by now. That they go, well, hold on, this goes against what we're supposed to do at the minimum of people. And
for the people,
so they can't. So it's kind of like you hit like a brick wall.
Oh, it's a huge clash right now.
You're we can't do this.
And then
we can't legally do it on both fronts or whatever.
And then compounding that issue, there's no clear guidelines that have been released, again, as of May 27th, 2020, that say these are the 10 things that you need to do in order to be COVID compliant. So what the Actors Union, which is SAG, like what the Actors Guild have said, is each individual production has to come to SAG and pitch us your idea of how you're going to create a safe environment, and we'll tell you yes or no. Wow. So there's no like, okay, step 1, get the van. Step 2, sterilize the hotel. Step 3, do this. Like there's no checklist.
It's way more complicated than that.
And so that plus the fact that you can't buy insurance for production right now.
Right.
So the insurance question has become interesting recently. So there's an example of like how 9/11, like after 9/11, nobody wanted to provide terrorism insurance. And what the government did is they basically put in a situation and said, no, we will put a backstop in so that if we will federally back your insurance policy, meaning that like if there is a terrorist attack while you're doing your thing, we like as America, we need people to be working, right? Like we need our people to be working. This is a free economy. Like we need people to be working.
Right.
So we will provide an insurance backstop to your policy, meaning like if there is something that happened, God forbid, there's another
9/11
a thing happens.
Right.
We will back your insurance policy, and it looks like so it's basically a federal backstop to the insurance policy, and it looks like that's what the solution is. Meaning like for production insurance and also like how do you define a COVID insurance policy going forward? Does it like if one person on the crew gets COVID, you just get rid of them and you replace them until they're better and then you bring them back, unless it's an actor because they're in front of the camera and you can't replace. You can replace. Arguably, you can replace every single person on a film crew except for the on-camera talent. And I mean, if an actor has had COVID and they're on the other side of it, fucking fantastic. Like I say this as a COVID survivor. I say this like as someone that like I don't want to paraphrase and like put words in actors' mouths, but what I'm hearing in my position is that like everyone just wants to work.
Right.
But this whole situation is very confusing and frustrating. And like
is that something the actors are doing now to be like, "Hey, I tested positive for it back in March,
not that I'm hearing. No.
But they're like, I'm good now. You can hire me.
No. I'm
Nothing
not
like that.
Not,
but also
not
that also kind of changes everything big time too, because now it's like, as in the entertainment business, as you know and as I know, it's not about, especially for somebody's like look and feel and touch and their voice and everything like that. It's not like, hey, I went to 4 years of acting school, so I'm qualified for this job.
Well, that's a whole separate conversation in terms of like
no, but that's what I'm saying. So it's not like, because when they pick an actor, they hire their people that they hire they don't want to have any kind of weird restrictions like that. Like, let's say they want that microphone's gonna drive me crazy.
I'm making my own rules.
No,
here.
I know I know it's gonna be like it's all over the place. But like,
We got wheels and shit.
no, but that's what I'm saying. It's like that's what's interesting about it too. It's like because if somebody wants to go, hey, I wanted to do this movie, I wanted to work on it, and it shoots in, it takes place on blah 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 blah. It's this location, this location, this location. Everyone's like, no, you can't do that now. It's too many variables, too many factors.
Well, and like one of the ideas now is to find small productions, like it's what we're calling like low footprint, COVID friendly productions, meaning not a lot of background. Everything shoots in very minimal location, like location shooting versus stage shooting. That's a whole
another ballpark.
Very interesting conversation. Like on a stage, you control everything. On a location, you have to find ways to control everything. Like on a stage, you create your own environment on a stage, meaning like you can create a testing zone. You can create like a sterile environment for your actors. You have so much you can do on a stage. But if you have to show up to a church and you only have like 3 days to shoot the church scene and then get the fuck out because they got to get mass there on Sunday, like you have to show up, sterilize the whole location, do your whole thing. It's so freaking complicated.
And there's no insurance to back this.
And the insurance thing is going to sort itself out organicring. Like at some point,
they're going to figure out.
At some point, somebody has to, like, for example, there's a film that's prepping right now in Winnipeg, like Winnipeg, Manitoba. Mm-hmm. They had 400 cases in Winnipeg of COVID, and they have 30 active cases right now. And the government of Winnipeg, they put in a very specific plan to bring businesses back, and they consider film production to be very important because it brings a lot of money into the province. Right. That's an area where the tax credit it's so effective and it's incredible. They have great crews. They're Canadians. They're nice and they're like creative and they're like good people.
Yeah.
But also, Winnipeg took it super fucking seriously. Like people sheltered in place. Also, it was winter, so like people were at home anyway.
You're at home anyway.
So I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah.
If you've seen Northern Ontario in March versus Florida, like it's a very different.
Dude, that's what I was saying about like everybody's going crazy here in California. I was like, it was eerily familiar to me of growing up in Ohio because you couldn't go do anything during the winter months and you didn't see anybody for like a month at a time. Like that's how it is. And it was like
all bets are off now. Though.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Well, and also too, there was like a whole wave of like somebody was telling me the other day that they were like, we're going in waves of this because I felt it for sure. Where when this first happened, I felt that mild anxiety, and I use that word very loose because I hate it when people overuse the word anxiety. But it did feel a little nerve-wracking at first, and then you coast into this lull valley wave where you're like, oh no, I'm kind of used to this now. Okay, I'm kind of used to it, and then you hit another spike of I'm going crazy again. There's that microphone again.
It only buzzes when I touch it.
It's a grounding issue. That's the deal. Yeah.
I've been told I have grounded issues.
You have grounding issues? Yeah. It's weird. Mine's not doing it. Mine, I don't know what the hell. I'm going to have to fix that and everything.
It's me.
It's you. You fucked everything up. It never did it for 7 episodes, and here on episode 8. No, the one thing I was going to talk about real quick, too, with that is, and you know a lot about this, too, is that and this is a selfless plug for me here real quick for all you ladies and gentlemen out there.
O'Grady has a podcast.
Yeah, I got a podcast. I don't know if you've been listening to this whole time. I don't know if you know this, but this is a podcast, and it's mine. But it was at the end of January.
This is not a Jiffy Lube commercial.
No, it's not. If it was, it's the worst Jiffy Lube commercial ever conceived of for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
It took you 9 episodes to get to the plug.
Yeah. So whenever I take my car in for an oil change, I use Jiffy Lube. That's right. That was the whole point of all this. That's it. I'm done. I've hit it. Good night, everybody. No. When you're on set, I did a short film at the end of January, and I'm going to kill you. I swear to God.
You told me to grab it like this. I'm doing everything you said.
Just stay put for 1 second.
No.
Just stop moving.
That's not what's
for 2 seconds, because I try to say something, and then all of a sudden
All right, talk about your short.
And then I go, meh. You know what's going to bother me later, and I have no way of knowing this now, is that if it's not showing up on the audio. It probably is, but there's a good chance that it's probably not. We probably just hear it because it's active live. Does that make sense? Whatever. Anyway.
Which means later, like, everything's going to sound perfect, and you're just going to be like, I stressed out for nothing.
Right, exactly. But I have
I want to say, how many times have you stressed out and it's been for nothing?
All the time, every day, every second of every day.
Almost all of it. It's better just like to not stress.
I know. I wish I was a little bit more Matthew McConaughey like that, but I'm not. In real life, I'm a huge basket case. No, but when you're on set, we did the short film and we did that in 4 days. And I know for me, I got a little, not sick, but you get worn out. And everybody gets worn out because you're there at the crack of dawn. You're there at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And for me, I was acting in it and I was doing everything. And the weird thing that happens with me is that anything that I end up doing creatively, whether you're probably working in production or whether you're acting or whether you're doing something like this, like when I do something like this, I get so excited.
I'm not allowed to work with actors.
You don't know how to work with actors. That's what that is. You get so excited about what you're doing that all your mental and physical energy is going into it from sun up until sundown. And then for me, it's like, okay, I got to make sure I know all my lines for the next day and all that stuff. So I'm still kind of working even when we're not working.
So
I'm like, and you're starting to exhaust yourself because you're having fun. And like, for me, I think one of the greatest feelings in the world is when, I think especially with acting, it's different than music. I've learned that a lot, especially for the few acting jobs I've gotten to get, is that when you're physically and mentally using up all this energy to get your lines down, to get everything going and blah, 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 and the cameras are rolling and you're feeling that rush and everything going, da, 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 that like high you get afterwards at the end of the night that you did something and that euphoric feeling when you're like ready to go to sleep, there is like, I get the best sleep and it's like a fucking drug. It's like a drug that you like that. For me, it bit my ass like hardcore when I was in high school because I was in a play because all the drama kids were like, hey, we're doing a play this year. You should be in it. And I'm like, I don't act. And they go, yes, you do.
And that was the Backdoor Beauties 9.
That was Backdoor Sluts 9. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. They were like, no. No. They're like, what it is there's a tree and you're going to be tree number 2. And I'll tell you, I lifted my arms and held those leaves. And when they cued the wind and I shook them, oh man, I tell you, I shook them real hard. I went over my choreography for months. No,
they always said you had an organic approach to.
Oh yeah. But I was very new at the time, so I guess you could say I was very
seedling.
I was very green.
Dad joke. I like it.
Nailed that dad joke.
I'm in it.
I nailed that.
I'm in it.
I nailed that fucking dad joke. Props to me right there. Anyway, no. But all the kids came up to me and they were like, there's this play that we're doing and there's a part in it that would be perfect for you. And I was like, what is it? And they're like, it's called Damn Yankees and your part would be the devil. Like everybody and their brother and their sister and all my friends and people that they were just like, yeah, you'd be perfect for this. So when I did that kind of bit my ass really hard as far as like going in, learning everything, having fun with it. And then I just remember it's the biggest rush you ever get. It's like playing a show. You get all this adrenaline pumping. You go in and you do your shit. At the end of the night, your gears are still going. You know what I mean? You know that feeling like when you're tired and you're like, I'm going to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. But there's something in you that's still moving and you can't fall asleep that well. I get it after shows. I get it after a day of shooting. And then by the end of it, after you've gone through this entire adrenaline kick of up and down for like 4 or 5 days, you're worn out. You're like almost like, I'm fucking sick.
So imagine doing that for 40 days.
Exactly.
And that's what filmmaking is.
Right.
Right. And one of the big challenges now is that you're almost expected to wear yourself thin when you're in film production. And your immune system goes down.
Right.
Right. So like when you're in that position, you're immunocompromised. And when you're in a position where you have multiple people that are in the same state of physical exhaustion, and you're all eating out of the same bowls, doing all the, like sharing germs, doing all that. So one of our big challenges now is like, not only how do we, manage the germ transfers and all that, but how do we take a little bit more into account the human cost of filmmaking, and like how does it involve adding more days to the schedule to be a little bit
To
more
allow
relaxed.
everybody to get
but
rest.
then again, that increases the cost.
Right.
And so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share this info, but I'm just going to go for it, and I'm not going to name names. So that should absolve me of any.
If you don't
want
no,
I'm
if you're sure
closing
you
it because
can- okay.
it's relevant, and it's I think this is something that like if anyone here cares about independent movies, like there's a film festival that has a very famous program called there's a film festival that has a very famous program. The Sundance Labs, and it churns out the best directors and the best producers, and like and like everything involved with that whole situation is how we get our modern American filmmakers. Like that's how. Just like countless examples. That's not the point. The point is that like there was a producer that came through the Sundance Labs and like looked at how do we pay for the fixed cost of COVID compliance as it pertains to independent filmmaking, and they ran the numbers, and it was $10,000 per day. So on an independent movie, when your budget is as an independent film producer, and you're talking about 15, 16, 17-hour days on a 4-day shoot, it's the same shit on indie movies. Like when you're shooting a $2 million movie, when you go, again, Ohio has a great tax credit. I've sent many, many, many clients to Ohio. They've all had amazing times. Like there's a DP I work with named Brett Jukowitz who shot a film called Them That Follow that shot with, it was like Jim Gaffigan and a bunch of other people that I should probably know that I'm like blanking on right now. What's the
okay.
dude? No, the honky tonk guy. What's his? I should.
Wait, who's the honky tonk guy?
His name. Oh my.
The honky tonk. Is he an actor?
Yeah. He's it'll come back to me.
Wait, what's he in?
So Them to Follow. I don't know.
Honky tonk guy.
I
That
should
gives
really,
me nothing.
I should really know this.
Honky tonk. Honky tonk guy.
So no, he's the reason what the fuck is his name? No, this is gonna drive me nuts now.
What's he look like? What's he in?
Hold on.
He's an actor.
None of this is relevant. I wanna.
All right, stay on point.
I wanna stay on point here.
You did that.
Yeah, I totally did that.
You do this. You go. Yeah.
So a film like that, which is like a sub $2 million movie, those films they just barely have enough money to make the film itself. Right. So like, how are those films going to cover $10,000 a day of on-set testing and all that? So
the overall health of everybody.
So I personally have concerns that like there's going to be a bit of a period where like independent movies that don't have the money to be able to cover the fixed cost of COVID compliance and to create a safe environment, I think those films are going to have to take a bit of a back seat. And as a producer, you sort of have to look at it like you're not budgeting a $2 million movie. You're budgeting a $1.5 million movie and then spending $500,000 on COVID compliance. So you have to work in COVID compliance to your production plan. So if you had a film, Walton Goggins was his name.
Oh.
And
I don't know.
And he did a film called Them That Follow, and the point I'm making is that like
I'll look him up later.
There was a moment on the film when there was a truck that had to get up this hill, and it was stuck in the mud at the bottom of a hill in Ohio in like fucking March or April.
Ooh.
Like just rural shit. The film's brilliant. It's about snake handlers, the Pentecostal snake handlers, and
really?
It challenges religion. It's a really
you got to text me all these movies to be like, see this.
Well, you're using my phone, so I can't.
No, later. You do it later. Post.
As if I'll remember. Have you seen my?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'll text you movies.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Text me movies because I always. Well, so.
So you had this situation where you have on a bigger movie. If the truck had to get up the hill, you would have, what is that? That's props because actors touch it, so it's a props thing. But it's also what they call picture cars, which is a transportation thing. So you would have teamsters, and you would have like people that it's their job to move the cars. But on a small independent movie, even though this was a non-union movie, so like you didn't have all the union rules in place. So literally, there's video of Jim Gaffigan pushing this fucking truck up a hill. Imagine that in the COVID. No, but I'm serious. Like,
as he's helping out like a crew member.
He's helping out like a crew member. Like he's trying to, because he wants the movie to get made, and and everybody gets into the mentality of like, no, we're all in this shit together.
Right.
We have to get this done. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a safe environment for people.
Right.
So like part of it too is that some of these indie movies should not be made right now.
Right.
Like there are some small movies that are trying to get made for, sub.
Because then also too, my question is like, let's say if somebody was to decide to sue, could they do that?
I don't think so.
Because wouldn't you have to sign something at the beginning of everything going like, hey, by the way,
that's another question. I mean, one of the things that's come up is like everybody signs a waiver that says if I get COVID, the production's not responsible.
Right.
But the unions don't want to back that right now, which I can't blame them for. I mean,
right, because they have no idea. Yeah. There's so many fucking variables.
There's so many variables to this right now. So this is what I'm in the middle of right now.
Right.
And what my
this is what you're dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
At work. From sun up until sundown, you don't work 9 to 5, right?
I mean, I kind of work it's kind of 24/7.
Really? You're just up. You checking emails.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that like my phone has been recording and I've been this long without checking my email actually makes me a little bit nervous.
I'm sorry. I really appreciate you doing this and taking the time, especially because I know like this is. No, I know that's a long way for you to be like away from the phone and everything like that.
I like it.
It's a big part of your job. And your job is not 9 to 5, punch in, whatever the fuck. That's the other weird thing. I remember trying to explain this to an ex-girlfriend once, is especially for I think anything that we do out here in the entertainment business, is that it's not a 9 to 5 job where you can go, fuck it, I'm going to go in today and whatever. I'll wait it out till lunch. Lunch is over. I'll wait it out till 5. See you douchebags. Here's the weekend. I'm done. Especially for me as a musician, it's that like, if I don't do my job well,
what is a weekend?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That's weird. I went to Starbucks on a Saturday, and the lady there was like, hey, how's your day going? I was like, not too bad, just moving, working along. She's like, you're working on a Saturday? And I go, yeah. I'm like, but I was like, oh, yeah, a lot of people think Saturday, Sunday, days off. You don't work.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, and like one of the things that I've learned through this whole process of like being, because again, like I was at home for 5 weeks, like fighting this fucking virus that like killed me. It is so important to take time for yourself.
Yeah.
And like we in the entertainment industry are gluttons for working ourselves to the bone.
Right.
And like, and you have to hustle, and you have to, you have to do it, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Exactly.
And I that fear makes it's not even fear. It's just like, I need that. Like I need to know that there's 10 people that want my job. There's 10 people whose clients want the movies that I'm going for my people. And that's why like even now I'm sending scripts to clients that I don't know if the movies are going to happen or not, but I need those connections to happen, because like otherwise what am I supposed to do? Sit and wait until fucking like Newsom says, okay, you can go back to work now? Like
that's the one I know, and that's the one weird thing though, but I don't know if this is like a little bit different, and you understand this as being a musician and everything, is that like,
and I mean no offense at all to the Newsom administration, like I understand how difficult the situation is. I know. No, like, I did not mean that in like an offensive way.
No, not at all. But what I mean is like, when it comes to that kind of stuff, as a musician or an actor, as long as you just work on your craft, that's what makes me feel good at the end of the day, that I work on the craft. The thing that takes off a little bit of the pressure, but also can be very, very frustrating, is that you're not going to get a gig. And it really has nothing to do with you. People are looking for a certain guitar player or a certain actor or a certain singer for their own vision. And if you don't fit that criteria, they're not going to hire you, even though you're good at what you do. So it's kind of like this nice feeling of being like, hey, I'm good at what I do, and if I don't get this job, that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm a bad actor. It doesn't mean I'm a bad musician. It just means I'm not right for this one, which is why they always say, like, as a rule of thumb for when you do this kind of stuff, is that, look, you're not right for every part, and that's okay. That'd be ludicrous if you were. It'd be ridiculous. You're not. But your main objective is when you go in and audition, or you go in and do your craft, no matter what, you fucking kill it. Because if you're not right for this, you're not right for this, you might be right for something else. One of my favorite stories I ever heard, and I hear a lot about acting stories all the time, up until recently, there wasn't a whole lot of music stuff being talked about. But with acting, my favorite was that, and I've heard different versions of the story because Samuel L. Jackson auditioned for Reservoir Dogs. And obviously, he's not in Reservoir Dogs. But he tells a story about...
I did not know that.
You didn't know he auditioned for Reservoir?
I did not know
yeah.
that. No, shit.
So they use that as an example, and I
should
heard...
have been offer only at that point.
Well, here's the funny thing. He's in the very beginning. He's the black dude who gets killed in the very beginning at True Romance. So he's in True Romance for a second, for like a minute and a half,
but
right?
Quentin didn't direct that. It was
Oh, he didn't direct it? But he wrote it.
It was Scott.
Oh, he just wrote it. So when he auditions for Reservoir Dogs and doesn't get it, and I think he tells a story about that. He bumps into Quentin Tarantino the following year at Sundance. And he says something to Samuel L. Jackson along the lines of, he's like, hey, how did you like the film? What'd you think, man? And he's just like, yeah, man, probably would have been a lot better if it had some more brothers in it, but whatever. Like I said, a joke like that. That's like something that Samuel L. Jackson said to him. And he goes, don't worry, I got something for you. And that was Pulp Fiction. So because he went in and auditioned for Reservoir Dogs,
it was in his head.
He was in his head. So when he did Pulp Fiction, he was like, nope, that's the offer he got. He didn't have to audition for Pulp Fiction. I think I'm right on that. I'm pretty sure he didn't have to audition. But it's one of those things that's like, so with our...
Well, he was also Jackie Brown, too. So, like, there
Pulp Fiction was right after Dogs, though, right?
Yeah.
Jackie Brown was after that. So he already established himself with Quentin by that point, by Jackie Brown.
Oh, fuck,
right?
that's right. Jackie Brown was after Pulp Fiction.
Right.
Sorry.
But
my bad.
But
yeah.
that's one of my favorite things about this. And it can be also the most heartbreaking and frustrating thing because, as you know, you could live here for 10 years and somebody lives here for 10 days and they get something that you've always wanted.
It also depends on the mechanics of the audition process. And
sure.
Because you've got some people that are, and I apologize for my French, but some people are credit fuckers. Like, some people just want to see, like, this, I want to see that this person's done this movie and this movie because,
right.
like, and again,
they don't,
like,
wait, so you're saying they don't give a shit about the talent? They don't care about your talent?
Well, the talent is inherently defined by the body of work, but like they want to see that the films have been successful, right? So like, and you can make the argument from a financial perspective, like, well, these films have been financially successful in the theatrical space, therefore that person on our movie is going to create a theatrical success,
right?
Versus a competent director that has the trust of their financier and producers, that is open to a creative conversation. That's when I can come in and say, all right, so these 3 people that you want, they're not available, right? But I've sent your script to a client of mine that has shot like 5 crazy movies in Europe, and I've slipped it to them, and they've put this whole lookbook together, and they want to come in and take 30 minutes of your time and like pitch their idea of your movie to you, and they've spent literally a week on this fucking thing. Can you spend 30 minutes talking to them? And 95% of the time, this is, I probably shouldn't even, whatever. And like 95% of the time, like the director will be so moved because once you start talking on a purely creative, emotional level, like
it's not about the money. Yeah.
And you've passed the point where like, okay, I'm not going to suggest somebody who's not right for something.
Right.
Like I've learned to understand how to analyze, like, you know, how like a situation can potentially end. And some people, you're just never going to get there. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
And I have this conversation on a daily basis with clients where I have to say,
I'm sure it's tough.
It's just not going to happen. But again, I cover so many different, like such a big range of movies, from like sub $1 million independent movies to like $5 million movies to $10 million films to like $20 million studio movies to like series to animation stuff. So there's such a gamut of projects out there that like I can go to a client and say, like, I understand that you're obsessed with this director, but they're never going to hire you because they have their person.
Right.
But what you should look at are these 3 other directors, and that's my job, is to like go to these incredible, and again, like, I'm not going to take on a client unless they like they have to like fucking wow the shit out of me and like, you know, make me feel something. And like if they make me feel something with their films,
sure,
and I feel like, okay, I get it. Like, I get what you're doing. I get what art you've brought to this. Like, I can tell that this isn't just you know, making it look pretty and like making sure each frame looks good.
Yeah.
You've created a visual story.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've created this visual story and you've done something different and interesting and you've elevated this, like, you know, this material in a certain way, I think this director is going to like you. So you should read this script and you should put a lookbook together, even though this person's not asking to meet you. Like let's do this together. And that approach, I think, gets rid of a lot of, like, that whole audition process with actors. Like, I try to get, and again, that's where, like, fuck, I don't know how much of this I can, like, get into right now, like, without getting in trouble. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with like, it's part of it is getting in early and having you know, having a conversation with a filmmaker early on, but thinking about it not in the way of, like, I'm trying to find a job for this person,
right?
But really trying to figure out, like, okay, this script, like, demands this type of visual identity, and, like,
well, that goes back to what I was saying. Like, maybe you're just not right for this job,
and that's it. Like, it's that's very
okay.
Like, it breaks down very simply like that, and you have to take it. I feel like it was like Bryan Cranston had a great quote. He was just like, I just come in and do my thing, and if it's not right, it's not right. I mean, like,
he said that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because he said he would just start goofing around. Because before it was, he goes, I have to get this. I have to do this. He would take everything really, really seriously. And the second he kind of let go of all that and just was like, you know, hey, if it's not right, it's not right.
Then that's a purely creative conversation. Then you're in that zone.
Then he started booking, because then he finally let go of all that. And that's one. Here's the other flip side of that coin, which is really weird, especially for the acting and the music stuff. Well, hold on. Music is a little different. It's neck and neck with acting on some levels.
It's gotta be different. It's like, music. You're not, like, auditioning for each band. Like, bands form organically, and, like,
not here. It's a look.
They are formed.
It's
right?
a look.
It's
a look.
Yeah.
They want the look. They want the look.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They totally want to look.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're talking about, like, I'm in the band, you know, Rage Against the Machine, and I developed this with my buddy, and we've worked together, and we wrote together. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
But if you're in the band, like, passive aggressive.
If you're auditioning for a band,
passive aggressive for the machine.
Yeah, then that's different. Yeah, then they're looking for a specific look. But, like, the one thing that's different about it is there's a lot of things that I've gone in on audition for, and I've got myself bent out of shape about the way I played. But what I've heard back in review was he wasn't going to get it anyway. He's not the right look. Boom. So my playing is secondary. My look is first. My playing is secondary, which kind of sucks, because as music,
Is that
it's very
infuriating?
It's infuriating, but it's also a little liberating, because I'll tell you the other thing with when I went to go audition for this short film, which is supposed to come out at some point, called "Breathe the Beat," and our premiere was supposed to be sometime around now, but everything's pushed back.
That's Breathe the Beat.
Breathe the Beat. I went in for this audition, and I got it because the kid I worked with on the Strokes music video, I'm in the new Strokes music video called Bad Decisions, because I look exactly like the other guitar player, and they did the deep fake thing. And
Michael's in the new Strokes video.
The new Strokes music video.
Called Breathe the Beat.
No, Bad Decisions. But
Michael makes no bad decisions.
I never do. No, that's all I do. But no, so this kid who I worked with on it, who's playing the other guitar player, he was like, hey, you should come audition for this short film thing. I think you'd be pretty good for it. And I was like, okay.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And I go, all right. So I come down, and here's the deal. This is what drives me crazy to this day, because I'll tell myself not to do this, but I'll still do it, is I got fucking nervous, because I had a whole bunch of...
Yeah.
The thing that throws me off is that I'm going to either memorize lines and I have them down, or I'm not going to memorize them and I need to look. But if I decide to memorize, it's a whole mental game you go over with yourself. I get nervous when I'm in the waiting room. I started to feel that creeping anxiety, nervous feeling of, you're fine. Are you sure? I don't know. Maybe. No, don't get warm. You're getting warm. Why are you getting nervous? I'm getting more nervous. Stop shaking your hand. And it just kept escalating in my head, to where I'm going like, hey, at least you're not having a panic attack. Well, maybe you will have a panic attack. How do you know? You're like, and it starts going off. I go in and I do the audition, and it's just almost like a table read. We're sitting across from each other. I do it. The director asks me a few questions. He's like, hey, can you do it differently? I go, sure. He goes, can you do it more like this? Think of it like this. And I go, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And I'm sweating bullets inside. I'm nervous as fuck. My mouth is starting to get cotton mouth. I'm getting nervous. For people I don't know anything about it. All I know is I'm auditioning as a performer, and it's getting me all worked up. I leave, At some point, I get an email that I get the call or the email that, hey, we want to offer you this part. You're going to be the part of David for Breathe the Beat. I go, great, awesome. I'll totally do it. Let's do it and everything. We start to do rehearsals for it. And at one point, me and the director were standing outside during a break during rehearsal. And he tells me, he's like, man, the second you walked in, I knew you were David. I was like, if I would have...
So that's the reverse of like the...
if I
you never would have gotten it because you didn't have the look. Like you had the look.
Yeah, he was just like, he doesn't know me. He doesn't fucking like. He just was like, this is what I was picturing when I wrote it, and it has nothing to do with me, in a sense. Does that make sense?
It does, and like because
and you're like, why did I get so nervous?
And again, because I don't work with actors like on that.
That's
sense,
what that
like,
is.
I guess I look at like that whole side of putting films together as there's so much context involved that like
Right.
I'm not in an audition room and it's not an audition room and it's not just based on like pure performance. Like
Right.
the artists that I work with where I can base my judgment based on pure performance, it's cinematographers, production designers, editors,
Totally
like, all
different
that kind of
ballgame.
stuff. It's a totally different game.
Yeah.
And I've identified a few areas where like I've spent, and again, like I owe everything to my boss, Pete Franciosa, like the guy that has literally took me under his wing
Right.
when I was a fucking nobody and gave me a chance and like, it gave me the opportunity to like, I listened.
But yeah, you got that. Yeah.
I from being like in a pretty decent position in production to like leaving it and going in house and like doing this, I had to be a phone bitch for a year. Like I had to get coffee and fucking make meetings and shit. And I was literally running.
Cut your
fucking,
teeth,
like,
earn your weight, that kind of.
But I had already like moved up in production so much, so it was like I had to kind of like move down, but like
Right.
knowing I was gonna move up more in the long run. And I never really got, because I did casting when I was involved in film production.
Oh,
like,
okay, I didn't know
like
that.
when I was physically involved in film production. Like
Okay,
I directed a short and I auditioned actors. And like I wrote and directed a short in New Orleans that I don't think I've ever actually spoken about before because we had some sound issues and it's actually quite fun and like it kind of worked, but the point is like I went through the audition process,
Right.
And I watched people that were so nervous that like wanted the role so badly, and I was like,
Yeah.
why are you freaking out so much? It's like a tiny short. Like, why do you care?
Right.
Like, why do you
But
care?
we do.
But it was so much to them. And I was like, I'm so happy that you care this much about this.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
That's good. And you know what? To my credit,
And it sucks that most of you are not going to get this
Right.
role like that.
To my credit, the one thing I think I'm kind of good at is if I finally tell people that I was nervous about something, they go, couldn't tell. And I'm like, well, that's at least good. I know how to hide it. But internally, you
I
feel...
don't think I told you. I was super nervous when I showed up here tonight.
Wait, when you... Really?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if I'm going to be okay talking about... I mean, the whole thing could backfire and I could, like, get fired. Like, I have no idea.
We cut to the end of this
sure.
episode. You're standing on a side of a highway with your box, and, like, it says U.T.A. on it. And you're just like... And you have, like, the...
No, I couldn't even clear my office. I'm not allowed to go into the office.
Oh, you can't even go there. No, you can't even do that.
No, COVID, man. I can't.
Well, listen, man. Dude, Matt, we'll wrap it up here. I think
Let's wrap it up.
we got a lot.
We can always do part 2.
We should definitely. Well, this is like a part 2. We'll do another episode with
Yeah,
this.
air this one, give it a month or 2, see if I, see what happens.
See if you
and,
still have a
yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you can come work for me. Maybe I'll start making money doing this and everything. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But dude, no, brother, I love you, buddy. Thank you so much for coming in
course,
and
man.
doing
No,
this.
It's a pleasure.
And sitting chit chat and talking with me. Again, that was really good. A lot of great insight, and I hope anybody listening out there, if you're in Los Angeles or if you're not in Los Angeles, you get a little microscopic taste of the fucking craziness that is our entertainment business. And right now, it's bananas upside down, and you got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tough. I got to walk from my bed to my fucking kitchen table and get on a Zoom.
Well, you don't have to wear pants.
I had 6 Zooms last Thursday.
Dude, I'm
6.
Wait, just that. Hold on. I teach lessons too. So I'm on Zoom all day long. So I'm with you.
It's bonkers that that's become our life now.
I know, man. Dude, somebody, I don't know if I should say this. I don't know if I'll get in trouble. I won't say who it was, but somebody gave me a hug the other day. And I was like, oh my God.
You tell me this now?
I was like,
You've been hugging?
Just the one hug. I got a hug. It was like a reflex. Like
You know what that means, right?
What? That
we have to hug now.
we have to hug now?
We have to hug now.
We have to hug now?
If you've been hugging,
I hugged the one time. It happened not too long ago. I was
you've
just
hugged post-COVID,
yeah, just
and
recently.
you didn't die.
No, I'm fine. I'm good.
I can't give you COVID.
You can't. No, and I went and got the test.
We have to hug.
Should we hug on camera?
We should hug on camera.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to hug it on camera. This has been episode 8 of Michael O'Grady and the Creatives. Make sure you go on to iTunes. You give me 5 stars. Okay, you can give me 4, but no less than 4. And you can go to YouTube and subscribe and like to the channel, write comments, ask us questions, all that fun stuff. I'm just getting started with this. Matthew Coatsworth from U.T.A. Unitedly Talented Awesomeness. Thank you, buddy, for coming on the show. That's it. We're going to hug it out, bitch. You hug it out? That's it. See? We're okay. We're not going to die. Fast forward a week later.